I crapped my pants and realized I have the perfect wife. Reddit, what defining moments made you realize your wife/significant other was the one for you? Back when my husband and I were still dating, we went to a local fair. The true requirement for any fair outing is the giant corn dog, which you slather with mustard. So as we're getting our corn dogs and adding condiments, I walk over to the mustard pump. As I press down on the pump, nothing happens. So after checking to make sure it's not clogged, I pressed again. Mustard went everywhere. All over my favorite shirt, my jeans, my shoes, in my hair. Oddly enough, mustard did not end up on the corn dog. I turned to my boyfriend and was just downtrodden. Stupid mustard pump had ruined my day and I just needed him to tell me it was okay and not to worry. He took one look at me, gave me a little smile, and dunked his corn dog into his mustard. He then wiped the mustard across the front of his shirt and said, "There, we match now. We've been happily married for 5 years now. I honestly don't know what I'd do without him. He's an absolutely great man, and I'm so glad I get to share my life with him." I had swine flu. My boyfriend went and got the vaccine as soon as I had the mild first symptoms. Then he took off work and took care of me while I fought it for 9 days. For 9 days, I would wake up mid-projectile vomiting every couple of hours, unable to control it or aim it, getting it everywhere, and he cleaned me and everything else up. He got in with me to help me shower. He kept my spirits up and made sure I choked down some food despite being nauseous, and he called my bosses to let them know I was sick. And he still found me hot after all of it. I'll never ever let him go. Edit, he was visiting his mom and I called him and described my symptoms and told him to get the vaccine with his mom that Tuesday. He took a train home to me on Friday after I woke up feeling like crap and unable to do anything for myself. We knew the vaccine would need more than 3 days to protect him from me, but he refused to stay away any longer. It was pure luck that he didn't get swine flu. We understood that. My sister needs to read your post. When she had swine flu, her husband was downstairs watching Sports Center while she was up in bed nearing kidney failure. He seriously just left her up there puking all over herself for 2 days before I was able to get an ambulance there after not being able to get a hold of her. I went with my boyfriend and our friends one night right after getting over the stomach flu. Mistake. Since I felt gross from being sick, I had on a short and tight dress. I figured it would distract everyone from how pale I looked. I had a few drinks and started to feel like I was going to die, so I asked my boyfriend if we can go outside. He closed his tab and I somehow made my way to the car. We were in the backseat and I was half laying / half sitting up, having one of the just breathe moments. I sat up and yelled at him to open the door. Child safety locks. I threw up all over the parking lot and a bit on my dress. He told me later that he knew that he was in love with me when I threw up and farted at the same time right next to him, and he still wanted to kiss me. So embarrassing. That must have been one hell of a dress. Right on. Same thing happened to me. I was at my boyfriend's work party and had already had a few drinks. There were no more drinks left, so I resorted to goon. For all the redditors outside of Australia, it's a wine casket, which I really shouldn't have. I had an allergic reaction to something in the goon. I've never really had much before, and 3 cups proved to be too much. I proceeded to spew everywhere before getting home. Had a shower and ended up on the floor of the shower spewing, and then my throat started to close / swell. Gasping for air, spewing. Boyfriend crouched next to the shower telling me to keep breathing. No crap, Sherlock, and then drags me out. Continued to vomit in a bucket he had readied for me beside his bed. Spewed and farted at the same time. I tried to laugh it off, but damn, I was embarrassed. He stayed up whilst I slept to make sure I was still breathing and cuddled me to sleep. Still loves me. I have no clue why, but he does. I have a somewhat similar story from the other perspective. So, a while back, my girlfriend was having a bit of a get together with our friends over at her house. All was grand and merry. Everyone was having a blast until it got a bit late. Suddenly, she got really quiet and looked quite dead inside. Somewhere along the night she had managed to contract a plague of sorts and found herself married to the toilet for a good bit, vomiting profusely. She eventually returned, but our friends decided they were having none of that. For reasons I can't quite comprehend, they didn't just leave. They simply went into the other room and started joking around on the computer, keeping their own little party going. I didn't want to leave her alone, of course, so I stuck with her. She was bedridden at this point, and I spent a good portion of the night holding back her hair whenever she would come down with sudden fits of violently puking into her trash can, all the while listening to said friends partying quite loudly in the other room. It sure sounded like fun in there. After one particularly painful sounding fit of vomiting, she had this look of absolute wide-eyed horror on her face and bolts for the bathroom. I turn on the light to find that in her spasms, she had lost control and defecated all over her bed. She was gone long enough for me to clean everything up, and she was finally able to pass out once our friends had had enough drunken internets and decided to leave without saying a word. I stayed throughout the night and the following day trying to help however I could, and of course also fell quite ill, but that really didn't seem to matter. Not a word had ever been said about how she violently shat herself. I'm a gentleman after all. What can I say? I was madly in love with this girl and still am years later. We were together for just over 3 years, and she was the only one I ever shared my life with. She later ended up leaving me for some fellow with a steady job because I had no aspirations for the future. And that, my friends, is how I ascended into the ranks of forever alone. I have no regrets, though, because it is better to have loved and cleaned up a pile of liquid poo than to have never loved at all. Shortly after the birth of our first daughter, my wife had left me to care for her while she went to work. No big deal, right? Wrong. She, the daughter, not the wife, had a serious case of the Hershey squirts. During a diaper change, she caught me full on in the face with a stream of foul baby formula crap. Not just in the face, I opened my mouth in surprise. After rinsing my mouth out and completing the diaper change, I went back to raiding Kara, random wow reference for the win, thinking I would have a funny story to tell my wife. If only it had ended there. Just a few hours later, I'm sitting on the crapper, alternating between vomiting and crapping. I called the wife, who came home from work early. When she arrived, I still hadn't budged from the bathroom. We dropped the child off at my mother's and we went to the By the time we got there, I was weak, feverish, and delirious. So much so that I had a hard time sitting upright. Not to mention I still had to get up and run to the bathroom periodically. 30 minutes had passed in the waiting room, and I could no longer physically hold myself up in the seat. I stretched out on the floor and tried to get comfortable. A nurse came by and told me that I needed to sit in the chair. Being a decent guy, I told her my predicament and that I would try, but could she please hurry up on getting me a room? 10 minutes later, and there is no hope in sight. I attempt to rise to go to the bathroom. I sneeze. Game over, man. I crap my pants right there in the waiting area. The chair had an opening at the back, allowing for the crap squeezing through my butt cheeks to explode onto the wall behind me. I was too sick to care. My wife politely informed the nursing staff what was going on, and I was quickly put into a room. In the room, the nurses told my wife that they would not be cleaning me up, that she would have to do so without the benefit of a shower. My wife cleaned my butt, back, and legs with the equivalent of 3 or 4 hand towels. She gave me suppositories. She changed my diapers for the duration of my stay in the She didn't get upset when I deliriously kept asking where my gamma boy was, didn't even have one. I love my wife. We have been together 10 years this past month. I couldn't ever imagine leaving her. Where else would I find a woman willing to take care of me like that? Also, we laugh about this incident to this very day. We call it the time I got crap mouth disease. Edit. This was a rural southern hospital in North Carolina. This hospital serves 3 rural counties and was the only game in town. I found in my 2 years living in that area that everybody was lackadaisical about their jobs. As soon as I could, I moved my family away and will never move to an area like that again. I'm being purposefully vague, and for a reason. If I were to name and shame, as some have suggested, I could conceivably leave myself open to litigation. I have moved on from my horrible treatment at the hands of the nurses, who I think were simply lazy and used to taking advantage of the uneducated people who lived in the area. After 2 years of long distance dating, west to east coast, my lovely fiance, now, flew across the country, and a day later we moved into our new apartment together. 4 days later, the searing back pain I thought was a pulled muscle from incorrectly moving boxes sent me to the emergency room. Turns out I have cancer and a tumor on my spine. I'm admitted directly to the oncology ward and don't get to leave for 3 months while they blast chemo through me. My wonderful lady unpacks and sets up our apartment, cooks me dinner every night so I don't have to eat hospital food, sleeps on a cot next to my bed at the hospital, and does every other conceivable thing she could possibly do to help me through it all. You better believe I proposed.